the final chapter. It was originally called Resources and is now called Community Resources.
Because?
Because what a lovely community we have and all the help we have, and I really want people to do this with their community, because I think this collaborative approach is quite magical, really, and we can support each other so much. So I want to speak to this idea of making sure you've got support and reaching out for help, which I think can be a hard thing to do sometimes for people, to reach out for help. And know that people love to help as well.
They sure do.
It's incredible.
Yeah, you're giving people a gift.
Yeah. And running this space now, we have people who, come and set up the security system and the shelves and the fridge and donate this, that and the other and plant the entire garden and mow the lawns every fortnight. And I'm not doing those things. And I remember setting up this large shed thinking, this is going to be hard because there's going to be so much to do. But what has grown as our space has grown is the community has grown. So to really utilise those resources and make connections with each other.
I didn't really understand resources when you first mentioned it to me. I thought resources, we have to go to books and go to this book, or because I'm a bit old school, I didn't really know what resources meant. And then you said community, and I went, oh, right.
They are
the resource. And it just never went into my mind because I'm a business. I have to do everything by myself. So when you were talking about how am I going to manage this big shed, and I thought, how are you going to manage this big shed? And then things started to happen, like volunteers would come forward and say, I'd love to do your garden, I'd love to donate. And it was like, oh my goodness, it's a whole other world from someone would cut your lawn.
It really blew my mind, because I think about things like the garden. I didn't plant anything in that garden. No. I didn't do any of that mural on the wall. No. I haven't done any of the mowing. And people come and do it, and they are invested in it too. They really come every week and do the garden, and then somebody else says, I'm going away, I can't water the garden. Somebody else, I'll jump in and do that for you. So it's been really such a valuable lesson to me to get off my high horse and ask for help, and know that I did have a challenge for a while, because I thought if I ask people for help now, I owe them something. And it's really got to be a no strings attached kind of thing, because I can't go and do all those things for all those people separately. But they're not doing it for me, they're doing it for us, for the collective. Yeah. And also for themselves, because they want to be part of a community organisation. They want to give back. I spoke to someone just yesterday who was talking about being part of the Repair Cafe, and they were like, I'd like to be a bigger part of this. I'd like to be more involved. I'd like to give more back. And these are the other skills that I have that I'm interested to put in. And I thought, that's brilliant. They've asked to meet with me to tell me that they want to put in more time voluntarily, and which is what makes, it's the volunteers that make this space so accessible and affordable. And I mean, now with the funding, it's even better, because we can be creating these systems and structures in the background that help the longevity of it to be sustainable, and hopefully financially sustainable, because for the first 5 years there was lots of me getting paid $5 an hour for things because I was paid for the workshops, but all of this other time I hadn't realised, admin. As things get bigger, the admin gets bigger, because you need to document things and advertise things and emails and all of it, update websites and whatnot. And it's been from the start, when people come and they say, wow, you've done such a great job. And I say, I'm just here as a human representation of all these people that have given so much that I can't even think how I could categorize them all or name them all, but it's just it's shedding. They know it. I know it. We know it. It's ours. And so to think about, I'm trying to go back and think about when it started. And I know that it really started with me going, Pat, can I borrow some tools? I've got this veranda and I'm going to make some benches. And then it was me going to my friends, hey, will you please I went to the council, got the grant from council.
This is baby shedding. Yeah.
Baby shedding, 2018. Hi, council, we're going to do this amazing thing called Upskill. And that was when shedding was, 1 day a week or 4 hours a week with Upskill. And I came to you, can I use these tools? Go get some clamps. Hey, Bunnings, can we have some discounts? Oh,
yes.
Yeah, I'll give you some discounts. Oh, great, thanks. And
Mitre 10, were they in there? Or did that come later with tools?
Mitre 10, they give us discounts.
Yes.
They support us with discounts. And it's important for people to remember that Mitre 10 will price match. So I can go and find things and like 10 packs of drill bits. I look for them in the shop and I can't see them, but they'll order them in for me, which is brilliant. So really just reaching out and then, Library of Stuff, we're going to have an event. Yeah. We need 100 cups and plates and fans and cleaning gear and cooking gear and all this stuff. And can we have your help? And dropping into the U3A men's shed and the men's shed in the community garden. Can we have your help? So there's just been so much reaching out for support. And also people are interested, great, what are you doing? And then the men's shed come along to our open day and host a toolbox making workshop. And it's like, And so there's this collaboration that happens with other organisations, and also not underestimating the students themselves, because the students come into this space and it's a really interesting dynamic because I showed them stuff and they're coming to a space where they don't know it. So this relationship happens with this person who has a name who I know nothing about. They've not brought their identity into the space. This is what I do and who I am and where I live and all that stuff. They've just come and now we're using a drill. And then at the end of it, and I'll say to them, we'd love your support if you want to be involved. And sometimes people will say, I'm a grant writer. I'm a web designer. I'm a cleaner. I'm this, that, or the other. I work for this magazine. I'd love to do an article. I'd love to do a podcast. I'd love to do an interview. And so it's been that. There hasn't been a whole lot of, we need to do big advertising things for shedding and put lots of money into that. It's been, my brother's friend's partner runs a podcast and they'd love to have you on because I told them over dinner 3 weeks ago about what you do. And there's this networking thing that happens that I think is not to be underestimated.
It's true.
Just making sure that it's what people have capacity to offer.
Yes,
and don't ask, we need money. We need money. Give us this thing that you can't give us.
Can't give us. Mm-hmm. It's a really great role model because I think that's what happens. People want a community workshop and they go, why won't the men's shed share? Or why won't the council give us money for something? And I really like what you said. Go with what people will give you, and turn your attention somewhere else and go and find something else.
Yeah. Well, I remember you saying to me, path of least resistance.
Yeah,
and I can feel it, if I'm pushing for something with someone and I'm going, this feels a bit hard, then I'm like, all right, shift direction, put it out there.
Yes.
Or put it down for a moment.
Yes.
Until maybe I'm in alignment.
True.
Or I'm, in a different headspace.
And people really want to help. They can see the capacity of shedding and what it gives people and the way that you treat them as well is really, just a lovely spontaneity that you have about you and your excitement about shedding and what you're offering. Yeah. That really helps people to want to come on board, and you invite them in and you're, there's space for you too here. It's a very welcoming space. Yeah. So, of course, people want to help, of course.
Yeah, they get so excited to help. What can I do?
What can I do?
And I go by this mantra at the moment of, if you ask, you might receive. Ask and you might receive. So I ask lots, and I've over the last 5 years, I've gotten quite used to asking lots, and it's become more comfortable for me.
Yes.
In the world of shedding. In my private life, it's sometimes more challenging to ask for help. And there is still some stubborn Tory in astrology in my existence. But I think I've just received such positive feedback from asking for help with shedding, and people offering to help with shedding. I've also had experiences where people have offered help and then burnt out, and I really like to acknowledge at the forefront of asking for help, you are responsible for yourself. Give as much as you feel comfortable to give. I can't
be in your lane.
Yeah, that's your lane, mate.
That's your lane.
I'm driving over here in my lane.
And a no is just fine. I can handle a no. Don't be worried to say no to me, because I can handle it.
And also acknowledging that sometimes people come here because they don't want to do that thing.
Yes.
So I have counsellors and psychologists who come here and they love this space because it's about mental health. And I think, they're in counselling and psychology. Would you be interested to step into this role? And when they say no, I don't need to push them and say,
no,
but counselling and psychology, blah, blah, blah. They're actually wanting to step outside of something that they do.
Yes.
And I've had the same with people who are great at computers. They come here because they want to be hands-on.
Yes.
They don't want to be thrown onto a computer.
Yes.
So and other people love to bring a little bit of their outside skills in, and some people love to bring a lot. So I think in terms of the listening, it's really important to hear and respect what people's parameters are.
I like your point.
Because I will ask a lot sometimes, and I'll say, I'm going to ask a lot. Because there are all of these things that we could do with your help in, and if you don't help us in those things, that's completely fine. And it's really, and I often say to people, no worries either way, just let me know, because if it's a no, that's really helpful for me to know that I can redirect and ask somebody else. And maybes can be, I've sat in the world of maybes quite, maybe I could, because it feels nice to have the potential of helping someone, but it just leaves them in a grey area. And I know I've done this where, that'd be really lovely, and we can, and there are lots of potentials that people talk about when they get excited after a workshop, and then the follow through may or may not happen.
Yes, right.
And I start to see some patterns there in terms of people's enthusiasm versus their little reality checks, which I so welcome. People will say, I'm so keen to do Fridays and Saturdays, and we can come and do Thursdays, and then 2 weeks later they say, hey, I just needed to sit down and have a little check-in with my capacity. And I think, brilliant, this person has this awareness of self and their capacity, and they're working to their own capacity, which is what we invite within the workshop. And I also want to invite that because it extends a little bit beyond the teacher-student relationship at this point. There's something happening here.
But this is all part of community resources and how you're treating them. So it's really good to get a bird's eye view of how you do community resources. How do you ask? What are the ramifications? And this, you just described that, which is really comforting. You're ready for the no's, and you give them every capacity whatsoever to say no. And yes, you're going to ask a lot. That's all under community resources. And it's really lovely to hear you talk about it. It's really inspiring to hear you talk about it.
Oh, how wonderful.
And I can hear the respect you have for the people who help you, however long I've known you. I've never heard you say, they came and did a terrible job of the lawn, or, they, talked all day about their new puppy, or you never, ever have done any of that gossipy stuff, which is, really, really important in this as well. And I touch on it in my book, how it's really important as a teacher that we don't gossip about another student or a fellow teacher in the environment. So all of those things lead, all of those things look to the integrity that you are carrying for shedding. And I like it a lot.
Yeah. I think that's where it's been important to have someone to talk to about some of those challenging things, but be able to maintain the confidentiality of
Yes.
people I might be talking about.
Yes.
Because people know people.
Yes.
And also people change as well.
Yes.
So I know that sometimes someone said something to me about someone and I think, oh, golly. But that was their experience of that person 10 years ago,
Yes.
you know, and I'm meeting this person now. So I think it's, yeah.
Can I tell you something I used to do in my workshop?
Please.
When I was probably, 10 years in, most of the people that came to me were local. And some of them knew each other, some of them they didn't. So I'd had 4 women in the workshop. It was mainly women. And one of the things that I would say was in the housekeeping, there's the loo and there's this. And I just wanted, it's a very small community where, what I'd like you to do is that if you go uptown and someone gives you a bad haircut or an awful sandwich, that when you come back, this is a very safe place that you can talk about it. But please don't say the name of the person that made you the sandwich or the shopper. It might end up being the brother-in-law of someone sitting right beside you.
Yeah.
And everyone laughs.
Yeah.
It was the best thing that people I could tell people. And it just made everyone feel safe, and it took the gossip level down a whole other level.
It reminds me, I'm really glad you speak to that. As you're talking, I'm reminded of a person in Victoria who's contacted us about this training to set up a women's shed, because there is a men's shed and the women went to use the men's shed and something happened. And so the women thought, oh, well, we're going to set up our own women's shed and the men don't like us, or whatever it might have been. And I thought, interesting to, like, in terms of community resources, the men's shed are a resource to us. And I think to really hold back from judgment, and I'm speaking to this not to say, I'm so good at this and you should do this thing, to say this has been a challenge for me too. I'm a human with judgments. But to hold back from judgments of people and our opinions of them, and find where we can work together. Because there are sometimes people that I like more than others and I like less than others, but that's not really what this is about for me. It's definitely about the values aligning, depending on the extent of the collaboration that might happen between other people. Our values, inclusivity and well-being, if it's not lining up with those two things, then it's a thank you but no thank you sort of situation. But really, I know in the past I've had judgments of people and thought, oh, I'm not sure about this, that or the other. And then I've been like, hang on a minute, Sophie, this is about inclusivity, So
what stuck out with you from the person from Victoria about the men and women's shed? What?
It felt like the thing that they were fighting was the thing that they were going to create.
Okay.
Because the men didn't want the women in their men's shed, so they were going to create a women's shed. But then the women wouldn't want, whoever else in their women's shed.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, that's a pity. Because I love that. For me, when I'm seeking out community, it's anyone and everyone, really.
It's inclusive.
Because that's
Absolutely.
the whole point of shedding. So I don't need to just reach out to women for this thing, or two men for that thing, or two people of this gender or this sexual orientation or this, skill set.
Yeah.
And now I think what's happening for me is those resources are far and wide. It's not just our little community of Mullen. I think after the flood, it was like people were coming to us from Lismore and Wollongbar and Ballina, which is a big part of the reason to create this program, to reach out and offer support to them. And another part of the online course, this online part of the program, is to actually reach out and support people as far as we like, which when I did this authentic relating course online and I was being taught from someone who's in Finland or Italy or, people all over the world, I thought, wow, there's actually a lot of potential for connectivity, and let's not underestimate that. As much as, the hands-on part is the part that I think we both feel is very important. Words don't teach. People can watch this stuff, but they're not going to know how to, they're not necessarily going to know how to pick up some tools and go for it. And it's like, get into the space, feel it, do it. But this outreach of the message that we're trying to give can actually go far and wide with the support of all these other resources with aligning values. The number of people that I've told about Woodwork for Women is everyone, actually, who comes to shedding, because I say it from day dot in upskill, because I just can't express how important that is and how valuable that is to have. Like, I just couldn't do it by myself. It would just be mad. It would be hard. It wouldn't be fun.
It wouldn't be fun. That was the whole point, that you share. You've got so much to share.
Yeah. And then I think that's maybe the thing to focus on when other people are giving, does this feel good for you? Great.
Yes.
Does it not feel good for you? Don't do it. I had someone who said, I've got a lot of other work that I could be doing, but, and I said, it's really up to you. It's up to you and what you want to do. And they said, well, I want to come here. I want to do this. This feels good. And I was like, oh, great, we'll do that then.
Yeah.
You are the boss of your own sort of parameters.
You're the driver. It's been a great journey in itself. I've discovered things. I've heard stories about you I didn't really know, or I've heard them again in more detail. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to tell you about my business, because being such an isolated it's a business, not a community, it's been lovely to share that. It's been so special. And hanging out, talking about things I love, woodwork and tools and mindfulness and listening, all my favourite subjects lined into one. I've really, really enjoyed it enormously, and know that there's people listening. It's like, oh, they're there too.
Yeah, that's not to be underestimated.
What's it been like for
people
you?
are actually listening. So for people who are even listening to this, for people who are even participating in this, I just really want to acknowledge them and honour that process, and I'm just so excited for them.
Yeah. You're in for the ride of your life.